The apostles fulfilled the Lord's commands. They went out, they proclaimed the good news of Jesus Christ. They, in their turn, commissioned others to continue the mission. That's how the church works. We know how so many of them in those early days met with resistance, persecution, arrest, imprisonment, and death. Made no difference to their enthusiasm, their commitment. The days of the peace of the church were not far distant when Agatha lived and died in Sicily. And it's quite a tribute to Agatha that when the spasmodic imperial persecutions ceased, when the kind of buildings we now call churches were coming into existence, lots of artists chose to show St. Agatha in their work, because Agatha summed up all that was best in offering her life to Christ without any conditions. And so Agatha gazes out at us in, for example, that wonder work of ancient Christianity, the Basilica of Sant Apollinare Nuovo at Ravenna. The poet Yeats, describing mosaics like that, called their figures sages standing in God's holy fire. We know a few crucial things about Agatha. She was Sicilian. She chose to consecrate herself to God as a virgin. And because of that, the finger of the persecuting authority pointed to her, and she became a martyr. The connection between virginity and martyrdom isn't just chance. A decadent society which only looks for instant gratification is sometimes impressed when someone outstanding chooses chastity and purity for religious reasons. It recognizes that forces are in play which go beyond the reach of this material world. Sadly, though, more often the reaction is fury at something they just can't understand, let alone embrace. Agatha comes into that second category, and so she was pursued cruelly, ruthlessly, to the very end. It's interesting that some people these days, even historians, even so-called church historians, are skeptical about our ancient accounts of martyrdom, accounts that pile on the agony. And these modern experts dismiss them as fanciful and fictional. Where were those historians, we may ask, in the 20th century, when so many countless barbarities in war and terrorism took place, not to mention the pathological acts of violence committed by individuals against each other, the ethnic cleansings of those who would claim to be civilized nations. Moving on. For many years, one of my favourite authors has been another Agatha, Agatha Christie. Now, Agatha Christie has quoted in her biography, described her detective stories as morality plays, demonstrating that there was wickedness in the world. And her biographer goes on to say that the second lesson of Agatha Christie's morality plays was that such wickedness could be found out and expiated. There's a distinct effort in these so-called days of enlightenment to claim that there's no such thing as wickedness. Social pressures, psychological conditioning result in a fragile, feeble morality. If that were so, there'd be no need for a religion of redemption such as Christianity. Jesus and his saints would be superfluous. Empty words, of course. The life and death of Agatha shows the exact opposite. Her arrest simply because she refused an offer of marriage was a flagrant injustice, and her execution was an act of sacrilege because, as a consecrated virgin, she was one of those who, in our Lord's words, have chosen the better part, and it shall not be taken from them. It was taken from Agatha, like life itself. There we see sheer evil, sheer wickedness. But Christ and the saints repay malice and wickedness with goodness, which is why St. Gregory the Great did Agatha the great honour of adding her name to that carefully selected list of those who figure in the Roman canon, our first Eucharistic prayer. Older, we may choose to remember, than the canon of the New Testament itself. Today we honour St. Agatha and thank God for her witness to the inevitable triumph of good over evil.